What's up guys, this is Orify. You surprised me with a huge number of views, likes and comments under the previous 2 Modern Warfare videos. It's a pity that Bioshock didn't appeal to you at all. But today is not about that. In this video we will talk about the final part of the trilogy Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. I remind you that this is the 3rd video on the Modern Warfare series. And if you haven't watched the previous 2 for you, in the description I will leave links to the vids for the 1st and 2nd part of Modern Warfare. And now on the top right of the screen there will be a tooltip that you can use to familiarize yourself with the 2nd part. Enjoy your viewing. I'll also insert a couple of my thoughts here. During almost the whole playthrough of this game, I couldn't let go of the feeling that I was playing some perfect battlefield. So much quality action for a long time. I even got tired of such abundance of content in some places. Okay, action is certainly good, but still there is a nuance to mission with the airplane. However, I won't spoiler now, because about it and everything else I will tell you further. So, the plot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. As you may remember from the previous videos, the 2nd part ended with Soap and Price ridding the world of General Shepard, returning his knife, kindly stuck into Soap. After which, Nikolai arrived by helicopter and took Price and Soap with him, mentioning that they were now outlaws. And as we can see now, Nikolai delivered our heroes to some village in India, where Soap will be trying to save them, while we will watch the events of the past parts in the form of flashbacks of Soap. Meanwhile, the players are transported to Russian-occupied New York.
Chapter 1: Shadows of Terror.
We're playing as another mute dummy from the US Army Special Forces Delta, call sign Frost. And our main task is to destroy the enemy jammer. In general, the task for 5 minutes you need to enter the stock exchange and destroy the device. But everything goes from the beginning is not according to plan. Our convoy meets an RPG shell and we have to make our way to the stock exchange building on our own. Having destroyed a crowd of useless meat, we face a problem, or rather a helicopter, and hastily hide in a nearby building in order to outflank the Russians and put lead in their throats, which eventually we succeed and we enter the building we need the stock exchange, where we have to climb to the roof and install thermite charge on the radio tower. Now that communication is restored, we have access to the guided missiles attached to the Predator drone, and use them to tactfully land the invaders' helicopter. After that we jump into our chopper and from the air we pour lead on the remaining enemy forces. But our joy was short-lived. A downed Russian helicopter tries to take us to the ground. But fortunately, the pilot manages to cope with the device and we fly out to help our fighters in the bay, because the control of Manhattan is restored and the enemy moved to their ships. And here, just seeing the model of the fighter on the radar and hearing the words, "Permission to engage in combat," I expected that now we will be given an incredibly cool mission with air combat. However, the developers didn't give us a chance to control such a cool thing and the whole action was behind the scenes. But imagine how cool it would be to fly among skyscrapers. I'm sure that everyone who played Battlefield 3 remembered that very mission, when you step by step prepare for the flight, and then take off and... Maybe later I'll make you a Battlefield 3 vid. In white case, today we have discussions about the plot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Let's get back to the plot, because next we will have no less atmospheric mission with the destruction of the Russian submarine. We will play for the same Frost, and are tasked to penetrate the bridge of the submarine, which is located in the command headquarters of the Russians, and have time to take advantage of the kindly provided them missiles to point them at enemy ships. And we start our journey with a flooded tunnel, and then sailing around underwater mines meet a submarine, to which we attach explosives and set up a boom.
Ретелл 01 на связи, подлодка всплывает, приступаю к атаке.
Принято 01. Возвращайтесь к основному заданию. Мы должны захватить управление ракетами на подводном.
Всем оставаться на местах.
The question remains, of course, how thanks to several explosions submarine began to surface. But never mind. If someone knows about it, write in the comments why so. Having forced the submarine headquarters to surface, we with a squad of SEALs climb into the conveniently open hatch and start cleaning the ship from the Russians. But as soon as the enemy realized his helplessness, the captain decides to destroy the submarine. But since we are the main character, we are lucky and we manage to get to the bridge earlier and start launching missiles. After that we fall into the boat and dodging the sinking Russian ships to get away. However, I will note one thing. Earlier we were told that on this submarine is a Kalachestvo missiles, capable of leveling the entire east coast of the Earth. But if we do not immediately give Daru from the submarine, we will see that there are only 2 missiles. Apparently the developers didn't expect me to stick around and record a missile launch Futasic for you. It's a shame, actually. Well, we still jump into the boat and get away past the epically sinking ships, eventually swimming into a helicopter, on which we fly away according to the classics. Now the game takes us back to Price and Soap. As you may remember, Soap was injured in the last installment, and at the very beginning of this game was taken to a village in India. However, the local medicine is not that good, so without serious medical help Soap can't survive, and now Makarov's mercenaries want to finally finish off Price. So Price takes a certain Yuri, a former Special Forces officer, and goes to defend the territory from the enemies. We will have to play for this Yuri. A good third of the next passage we will have to watch events from his eyes, that's why I'm introducing him to you. We also know that Yuri hates Makarov even more than Captain Price. That's all the information we have so far. However, I would like to point out that Yuri played an important role in the plots of the previous 2 parts of Modern Warfare, but there he remained behind the scenes. But about all this will be a bit later. So we take Yuri, take the AK, almost get hit in the face by a piece of the helicopter, and go to distribute lead gifts to the enemies outside. Luckily we won't have to do it for long, because Soap is getting worse and the doctor is dead, so we give the wounded a shot and go to clear the way to the helicopter. However, there were so many dummies that we had to enter a garage on the way, in the floor of which there was a hidden passage to the room with weapons, in which stands a fucking unmanned mini-tank with a minigun and a grenade launcher. We sit down at the control panel and go to surprise the enemy with such technologies. But Makarov clearly did not appreciate our attempts to demonstrate him new military developments, so he arranged a small bombardment, destroying our machine. However, we have already managed to get rid of the main force of the enemy, so we run to the helicopter without any problems, as suddenly right in front of us a drone blows up a building and Yuri falls and starts to roll epically on his ass down the hill. But such fun was short-lived. The first oncoming tree stopped Yuri's brilliant descent. Well, we load from the checkpoint and this time we successfully descend the hill, not forgetting to break the height record for diving at the end. Surprisingly, Yuri remains alive and can even move independently, after which he is taken away by our guys in a helicopter, further heading in search of Makarov. And we are moved to the plane of the President of Russia Boris Vorshevsky, who is now accompanied by fighter jets heading to Hamburg for peace talks. Play this time will be for the FSO agent Andrei Kharkov. Just for reference, the main job of the FSO agent is to ensure the security of top Russian officials, including the President, and also in the prevention and neutralization of possible threats to national security. To summarize, these guys' job is to protect the President and other officials. Well, as you can see, we play for a not very professional agent, because in the neighboring compartment of the plane shots are heard. These are Makarov's men. How they ended up on Air Force One is unclear. I've never been able to answer that question. If you know, write in the comments. It'll be very interesting to read. Well, we're back with Andrei. We have to accompany the President along the board, looking for his daughter, getting rid of Makarov's men. In the end we manage to find and save the President's daughter, so we can exhale. But the pilots seem to have been underpaid for a long time, and in order not to pay any more loans, they steered the plane into the ground. After such a soft landing, we are surprisingly alive, so we take our partner and go to look for the president, and just then Makarov's men came up. After finding the president, a helicopter comes to us. We already wanted to put the president in it, but inside we were met by none other than Makarov himself. He gets rid of our partner and begins to offer the president to give him the codes for launching nuclear gifts. But the president turns out to be adequate, so he refuses and he is shoved into the helicopter. And here we already wanted to take up the gun and kill Makarov, but he manages to do it earlier. We are again transferred to Task Force 141. We're going to Sierra Leone. This is where Makarov is preparing some important cargo for shipment to London. On the spot we are informed that not far from here there is a village where we need to pick up Makarov's cargo before its shipment. We of course tried to sneak through the village, but everything as always went wrong, so we had to uncover the shafts and relieve the poor local fighters from thirst. But having reached the church and cleared it, we break into the backyard, where right before our eyes a helicopter takes the package. What do our fighters do next? Decidedly unclear, because we still only know the path of delivery, so the game takes us to London to the SAS unit, whose fighters found Makarov's men in this very cargo. We can even watch from a drone as the boxes are loaded into vans and taken out of the territory. However, one car is left, and it is our target. We will play as Sergeant Marcus Burns. We quietly enter the warehouse and get rid of possible terrorists. As always, we can't do it quietly, so we start mopping up. After getting rid of the crowd of dummies, we still get to the truck we need and find out that it was empty all this time. And we will have to go further to clear the territory from the enemies, eventually reaching the railroad, although more likely the subway, but never mind. And here just then the terrorists have launched a couple of cars along the rails and are trying to get away from us. But they probably forgot to take the car keys, so we jump into the back of a pickup truck and go in pursuit, of course, full of action and distribution of lead gifts. And everything seems to be going pretty well at first. We even almost reach the next station, as suddenly the train explodes. After not the gentlest of stops, we surprisingly stay alive. Not only that, the enemies are still alive and are now on their way out of the subway. So we grab our weapons and head for the exit of the station, because by happy coincidence, the vans we need are heading in our direction to this station. We, of course, with a fight, go to the surface, where the fighters are already prepared to meet one of the vans. And here it is. After forcing the truck to stop, the game takes us to Mr. Robinson's family. As a father, we're filming our daughter and wife walking down a London street. And then a truck stops not far from them. Yes, it is one of those vans, which were followed by British Secret Services. Unexpectedly the truck explodes, just when the wife and daughter of the hero were near it. After that some gas starts to come out of the truck. This is Makarov's chemical weapon, which he used all over Europe. And it was done solely so that the Russians could once again try to get their hands on another piece of territory.
Chapter 2: The Decline of Ideals.
In the briefing, we are told of a series of chemical attacks taking place across Europe. In response, U.S. forces are sending troops to areas affected by the attacks. The U.S. Air Force base in Ramstein reports the Russians in Germany and requests immediate help in the fight against the entire Russian army. The mission begins with a helicopter flight, followed by a landing on a beach, and our mission is to rescue the Vice President of the United States, who is being held hostage. The Russians attack the American Air Force, but despite this, the helicopter manages to get the team to the beach, where they will receive support from 6 tanks. During the breakthrough through the streets of the town, the squad comes under mortar fire, which results in the destruction of several tanks. Nevertheless, the team continues the advance despite resistance from numerous infantry forces and several T-90s. Not without our help, the American Abrams tanks successfully destroy all the enemies in the streets. Eventually, they turn left and approach an underground parking lot. During one of the battles, we lose a machine gunner on one of the tanks and have to take his place. We then reach the parking lot, where we encounter an obstacle in the form of a tank and 2 helicopters. However, the Abrams successfully deal with them. The tanks clear several floors of the parking lot, but when they try to get to the next floor, the ramp underneath them collapses and they fall several floors down. One of the tanks becomes unfit for combat, and we are forced to abandon it. We then move to the exit to the street, where we take cover from mortar fire in a half-destroyed building. After clearing the room, we go back out into the street where we continue the battle with the Russians. As we turn the corner of one of the buildings, we find the remains of the vice president's convoy and a handful of Russians. The latter, seeing the advancing Americans, quickly close the door of one of the rooms and are about to ruthlessly dispose of the hostages. We immediately begin storming the room and, as a result, manage to save the vice president, after which we evacuate him. A squad under Price's command, including Soap, Yuri, several other fighters and Nikolai, who is covering us from a helicopter, decides to forcefully break into the African town of Bosaso in order to capture an African militia leader named Warabe, who can help us in our search for Makarov. We arrive in the town just before the sandstorm starts, so we need to act very quickly. Nikolai is in a helicopter shelling the militia checkpoint, which allows us to get inside with little to no obstacles. There are plenty of enemies here, and we are given the opportunity to control the machine guns on the helicopter while we ourselves hide behind concrete walls. After suppressing a huge number of mercenaries, we approach Warabe's office and immediately begin the assault. When only Warabe himself remains alive, Price orders everyone to put on gas masks and throws a gas grenade. He offers Warabe to trade information about Makarov for a gas mask. Warabe mentions a certain Wolf, after which Price surprisingly gives him the gas mask. Leaving the building, the squad breaks through the militia crowds to the construction site, on the roof of which there is an evacuation point. However, when we reach our destination, Nikolai informs us that due to the large number of enemies, he will not be able to land and pick us up. So we take control of the helicopter gunship again, and due to this we eliminate the obstacles around the site. However, the helicopter is shot down, and it falls directly to us, but we barely manage to climb down the rope. And things don't seem to be going so bad. We have to get to the helicopter and get Nikolai from there, but we are too late and a sandstorm starts. And we have to make our way to the fallen helicopter, on the way destroying crowds of militia, seeing almost nothing. When we get to the crash site, we see that Nikolai is wounded, so we put him on our shoulders and drag him to the backup, which picks us up and we leave the city. The next mission is to catch the Wolf. We're being sent to Paris, according to Warabe. Most of the city is still contaminated with gas. There's a huge number of dead civilians in almost every building, in every back alley. The atmosphere is, to put it mildly, not very good. Almost immediately after landing, we are noticed by Russians, but after what we have seen, we ruthlessly get rid of them. After that we meet with the fighters of one of the special units of France, from whom we learn that Wolf is now hiding in the catacombs. And now, we are together with them with a fight to break through there. We didn't have to search for a long time, we find the Wolf in just a few minutes. But he manages to escape and we have to chase him. Wolf manages to get out of the catacombs and into the car. Well, we also kind of know how to do that, so we jump on the passenger seat of the van and start the pursuit, on the way mowing down more crowds of Russians. In the end, having shot a tire and rammed his car, we pull out the Wolf and that's the end of the mission. 2.5 hours pass, and our group is still waiting for the evacuation board, but as soon as a helicopter comes to pick us up, the Russians shoot it down. After a fairy fall of the helicopter, we are transferred to the AC-130, which all this time was watching what was happening from above. Thanks to 3 excellent guns, we clear the area from the enemy's manpower, helicopters and tanks. After that we are returned to the Skin of Frost, who with his group burst into the courtyard of the American Embassy in Paris. Here in principle the whole mission is built around AC-130. We either from the ground on behalf of Frost destroy the enemy, periodically scattering signal grenades, on which the operator from AC-130 unitomizes all living things around the marked area. Or we do it personally from a height just from the side of the AC-130 TAC. We reach the bridge, which Frost continues to clear from the tanks. Air support covers the group, waiting for the arrival of transports for evacuation. However, the enemy forces are too numerous, and it is difficult for our helicopters to carry out the evacuation with a very important cargo.in, http://cargo.in. Such a situation, the Allied aviation is forced to take extreme measures and bomb the bridge, which is in close proximity to their soldiers. But we are lucky we are unharmed and are finally picked up by helicopters. Next, the game takes us to Price's squad in the sewers. We descend into the water and under the cover of a storm swim to the exit. Already outside we see how Russians on Prague mercilessly shoot civilians, then throwing their bodies into the water. Unfortunately, we can do nothing, so silently swimming under them, the group again gets into the sewers, where Komarov and some local resistance fighters were waiting for us. After discussing the plan a bit, which is that we should go quietly along the city to our sniper position, Yuri and Soap silently go through the streets of Prague, getting rid of a few enemies and reach the rendezvous point, but run into a platoon of Russian soldiers. Soap informs Price that they are in position, but there are too many Russians here. To which Price brings glad tidings he has brought friends, and appears on the roof of one of the buildings with the Czech militia. The fight between the Russians and the resistance begins. And we have to run past all this, watching as the Russians enter the houses and get rid of civilians. Then we can see how they are on APCs softly say disperse people, just shoot in the backs of those fleeing. But in the end, Soap and Yuri successfully get to the prepared sniper position on the bell tower of the church. Guys, I'm only human after all, so if I'm wrong or misunderstood somewhere please post it in the comments. Because this part of MW in terms of plot has been extremely hard for me. The next morning, Soap and Yuri are still waiting for the arrival of Makarov, who has an appointment at the hotel across the street. Price is sitting on the roof of the hotel and Komarov is inside. While waiting for the assault to begin, Price found it odd that Komarov never once made contact. Even stranger things happened when Makarov arrived. His convoy stopped near the hotel entrance, but Makarov himself was in no hurry to get out, and looking at the tower where Soap and Yuri were sitting, he ordered them to pull into the parking lot. After Soap and Yuri eliminate the opponents on the balcony, Price storms into the building and notices Komarov tied to a chair in the elevator, promised explosives. At this point, we all begin to hear Makarov's voice, where the explosives on Komarov detonate and nearly kill Price. On the opposite side of the street where Soap and Yuri are also heard Makarov's words. "Yura, my friend, you shouldn't have come here." A second before the church explodes, Soap manages to push Yuri out of the way, but he jumps out of the way and into the blast radius. Both fall to the ground. Soap is trapped under a pile of rubble with a serious wound. Price rushes to their aid and together they escape. Turning a corner, Price spots a helicopter, and they quickly go off the road into a building where Price has blown a hole in the wall with a grenade launcher shot. Next, Yuri and Price switch. Yuri gets the rifle and Price takes over delivering Soap. Next, they all take cover together at the basketball court, which is where the rebel reinforcements arrive. They bring Soap into the building. Price and Yuri's attempts to save Soap. But unfortunately, at this point, we lose another truly great fighter. After his death, Price leaves Soap his significant gun, which was kind of back in the first part of MW. A few seconds later, the enemy is already starting to break in. Price and Yuri run towards the door.
Соп доверял тебе. Я думал, что тоже смогу. Так откуда, черт бы тебя побрал? Макаров знает тебя.
From Yuri's memories, we learn that he and Makarov witnessed Price's attempt to get rid of Imran Zakhafiv in Pripyat. Makarov and Yuri were in the car at the time, thanks to which they took Zakhafiv out of the territory. Yuri was also with Makarov when he ordered Khalid al-Assad to detonate the nuclear bomb that killed 30,000 US Marines. And as it turned out, Yuri tried to prevent a terrorist attack at Imran Zakhafiv airport, but he failed to leak the information to the intelligence services and was declassified by Makarov. Yuri tried to kill Makarov, but lost consciousness because of the wound, after which he was rescued by the medics who arrived. It was after these events that Yuri began to feel a fierce hatred for Makarov. In the end, he did buy some time to forgive him.
Chapter 3. On the brink of defeat.
And so we come to the final chapter of our story. Before the mission, we hear a conversation between Price and Macmillan. As you may remember from the plot of the first MW, it was with Macmillan that Price performed the task of eliminating Zakhafiv in Pripyat many years ago. In the conversation, Price tells about Soap's death and asks for information about Zakhafiv's castle in the Czech Republic, where Makarov may be hiding. Under the cover of night, Yuri and Price parachute into the castle. Then they get rid of several soldiers by Telsu and plant explosives. After that, they clear the guard room, penetrate under the fortress, where the prisoners are kept. The stealth did not go far. The alarm rises, and the fighters have to fight in the open. After passing under the bridge, they plant explosives and penetrate into the fortress itself, where at the moment of thunder they blow up the wall, and thanks to the resulting passage in the interstitium they manage to overhear Makarov's conversation, from which they learn that President Vorshevsky does not give out the codes for launching nuclear missiles. But Makarov also mentions that the president has a weak spot: his daughter, and his fighters have just located her. She is in occupied Berlin. After learning so much, Price and Yuri start moving toward the exit, blowing up a bridge and killing a bunch of soldiers along the way. Eventually they break through to the outer courtyard, where they seize a Wazik and use it to drive away from the fortress. They can't get far and the car is hit by an APC, to which Price directs the car into the abyss, and the soldiers jump out of the car and open parachutes. At the same time, Price gives new information to Nikolai, and asks him to contact the Delta Group and pass on information about Alyona. The next morning, American intelligence intercepts a call from Germany from the same Alyona Vorshevskaya. She reports her location and that Makarov's men are trying to capture her. On the specified coordinates is sent American Special Unit, Delta, to save the girl. On the task sent 2 squads. The first goes into the building, while the second covers them. Unfortunately, the group that entered the building runs into a mine, and is no longer able to perform the task. Sandman decides to rescue his daughter with the help of his group. With the help of ropes, they descend from the roof of the building and start moving down the street. Surprisingly, they are met by a lot of Russians. Apparently, they have also intercepted the call. After a few dozen dead Russians, a nearby building is blown up. Almost all of the US and German soldiers are killed. Sandman reports to his command that the building has been blown up and many of the men are dead, and is told to get the hell out, for Berlin is coming to an end. Sandman disobeys the order and directs his squad to Alyona's approximate location. After killing all the Russians and going to the floor where she is, the squad hears a woman's screams, and going into the room the squad sees that it's too late. Makarov's men have already left with Alyona in a helicopter. Price, Yuri and the Delta team do find the location, namely diamond mines in Siberia, where Makarov is holding Vorshevsky, the president of Russia, and his daughter Alyona. The mission begins with an elevator, on which we go down the mine. However, we are not allowed to go down quietly, sending a gift in the form of an RPG shell. After that, the elevator starts to fall down. Just the beginning of the mission, and we already have casualties. One of the Delta Force fighters is dead. And unfortunately, we can't take him with us, so we put on night vision devices and set off to clear the mines full of Russian soldiers. Eventually, the fighters end up in a large hangar, where they come across a locked metal door. That's exactly where we need to go. We saw it open. I wonder if he's been dragging it behind him all this time. Just in case. After climbing the ladder, the squad finally reaches the exit of the mine. Sandman contacts Overlord and requests a UAV to monitor the situation from the air, to which we're given access to the Predator's missile controls. Good stuff. Next, the fighters, under our air control, make their way through the courtyard. But unfortunately, we were not allowed to play with this trick for long. The traitor is shot down. For what Overlord gives us another drone, which flattens the entrance to the mine, where dozens of Russians were sitting. Once inside, we come across a locked door, and upon entering, the team finds an empty room with Aliona tied to a chair. Price unties her and places her on the table. Aliona whispers that her father is being led even deeper into the mines. The squad moves on and sees the president on the bridge, accompanied by soldiers. We go down the ropes to the bottom of the mine, where after destroying a crowd of enemies we encounter a titanium door. It won't be possible to cut through it quickly, so we climb up and lay C4 in a circle. Basically, there's not much to tell. The most important thing is that we managed to rescue the president of Russia and evacuate him, after which he manages to make peace. World War III has come to an end. Oh yeah, in case you haven't noticed, it's been World War III all along. Personally, to be honest, I didn't notice it at all. Oh well. The war's over, there's a lot of dead civilians and soldiers. And Makarov's still alive. And that fact keeps Price awake. So he takes Yuri and heads to Dubai, where Makarov's headquarters is located. The fighters put on Juggernaut suits and go straight through, ridding the world of the remnants of Makarov's terrorists. Next, they take an elevator up, but a helicopter comes flying towards us, which after it crashes hits the elevator, and we fall down. Price and Yuri jump into a nearby elevator sent by Nikolai and ride further up. Once out of the elevator, they see Makarov running up to the helipad, and Yuri and Price start to make their way there. At this point, the helicopter fires on the floor, causing Yuri to bump into rebar. There's no way to help him now, so Price moves on. He runs to the helicopter and sees it just taking off. Jumping, Price clings to the helicopter, climbs into the cockpit, and ejects the pilots, whereupon the helicopter crashes onto the roof of the hotel. Price regains consciousness near the burning helicopter and sees a wounded Makarov. Price tries to grab his gun, but Makarov outruns him. He is ready to kill Price, but Yuri suddenly appears and shoots Makarov. Makarov is wounded, but kills Yuri with a shot to the head. At this point, Price attacks Makarov and beats him, then puts a rope around the terrorist's neck and tightens the noose, breaks the glass and falls down with Makarov. Afterward, Price lights a cigar. Well, such was the plot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. In summary, I would like to say that it was a fascinating and diverse adventure, full of action, all kinds of entertainment, and emotional swings. And so, thank you all for watching. Put likes, subscribe to the channel, write in the comments. How do you like this part of Call of Duty? You can also offer your favorite games on the story in the comments. And for multimillionaires, there are links to donate in the description. If you've watched all the way through, leave a clown emoji in the comments. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video, most likely it will be Dishonored. Peaceful skies.